Hello, good evening, and welcome to our special presentation looking at books, violence and resistance with Eric Huntley, Elder Eric Huntley, I should say. This is part two of a four-part series looking at bookshops and their role in resistance against racial oppression. We have about 16 events coming up, as you can see on the screen there, well, some of them are listed there, and you can find the others on our website, which is blackhistorywalks.co.uk. If this is the first time you're using Zoom, just in case, when you move your cursor inside the screen, you'll see a little box option that says chat, which is circled in red at the bottom of the screen. And that is where you go to put your questions or your comments. And for this presentation, we'll take questions after the presentation is over. So we'll hear from our speakers for about an hour and a little bit more, I suppose, and then we'll take questions using the chat function. So once the presentation is finished, we'll take questions using the chat. This session is being recorded and will be uploaded within a couple of days or so. And the first session with Mr. Huntley was also recorded and is on our website right now. Black History Walks has a YouTube channel, and it's basically youtube.com/Black History Walks, and you can find part one of this session with Mr. Huntley on that channel. Also, there's something called Zoom bombing, which is when weird people will infiltrate a session like this and then put rude comments in the chat box. Now, if that happens, hopefully it won't happen, we'll just kick those people out. So if there's any kind of abusive or rude behavior, those people or that person will be ejected immediately. This event is brought to you by the Sarah Parker Remond Centre and Black History Walks. Now, people often ask, well, who is Sarah Parker Remond? What's the story behind her? So here's a short video about Sarah Parker Remond.
My name is Sarah Parker Remond, and I'm from Salem, Massachusetts in America. I was born there in 1826, and there were 8 children in our family. We were not poor, but my parents could only afford to give us a limited education. This made me sad because I wanted to learn. I really wanted to be a doctor when I grew up. In America, I am treated differently because of the color of my skin. I am a second-class citizen. Just a few years ago, I was refused a seat at the opera. I had paid for my ticket just like everybody else, but I was thrown out of the theater simply because I was black. Luckily, I could afford to take legal action against the theater, and I was awarded $500, but I didn't care about the money. I just wanted the theater owners to admit that they had been wrong. When I left America to come to England, I boarded the Oriah steamship. We were so pleased to see Liverpool when we docked on January the 12th, 1859. I expected things to be better in England, but I'm afraid I faced discrimination here too. Many hotels and boarding houses refused to let me stay because I was black. But thankfully, not all British people are so prejudiced. In Britain, the slave trade was abolished in 1807. Yet in America, black slaves still are bought and sold on the streets. That's why I'm over here, trying to rally interest for our cause. I thought if I traveled here, I could get support for our continuing struggle against American slavery. In the 4 years that I've been in Britain, I've delivered around 40 lectures like that, across England, Scotland, and Ireland. People seem interested in what I have to say. I suppose it's unusual in Britain for a woman to be involved in public speaking, especially a black woman. Maybe it makes people more curious about me and willing to hear of the struggles black slaves face every day in my homeland.
So that's just a bit about Sarah Parker Remond. There's a lot more to her story. And we've actually organized an entire event around her because she's a real legend. The event will be led by Professor Serpa Selenius, who's written a book on Sarah Parker Remond. And as you can see in the description on the right-hand side, she lived around the same time as Mary Seacole. She was involved in the suffragette movement in this country. Then she moved to Italy, where she became a doctor. This is back in the 1860s, 70s, etc. So her story is quite amazing. She spoke several languages. She was a colleague of Frederick Douglass. So her story is not that well known, but we'll be telling her story, or I should say Professor Selenius will tell her story on the 5th of June. And the Sarah Parker Remond Centre is a part of University College London, and it's based there not far from Good Street. And they're doing a lot of work into study of race and racialization. So you can check them out on Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, etc. That's a clip from their website. They're doing a lot of work, and it's thanks to them that this event is happening. So you can thank them for this event happening, especially for a free event as well. Now, they also have some really interesting podcasts. So on their website, they have about at least 50 odd podcasts with a whole bunch of really interesting academics and scholars, including people like Linda Kwesi Johnson, Les Back, Dennis Bovell, as you can see there, speaking about different aspects of African, Caribbean history, race, and racialization. So if you check out their website, lots of really good stuff there, and it's thanks to them that this event is taking place. The head of the Sarah Parker Remond Centre is Professor Paul Gilroy, who you may have heard of before. He's written some fantastic books. One is called Making a Black and Union Jack, which was actually quoted in the recent demonstration at Pimlico Academy, which had issues when it came to how they're treating their Black students, and the students, you know, took them to task for it. And they quoted Mr. Gilroy, so they're getting some history expressed on their walls there. But there'll be a lot more events like this happening over the next 6 to 12 months, as I will show you later on. So I'm from Black History Walks. My name is Tony Warner, and we organize walks, talks, and films on the Black history of London each month, all year long. These are some of the events that are coming up. So today we're looking at part 2 of Books, Violence and Resistance with Mr. Eric Huntley. But there are 2 more parts to go. We're going to go to New Beacon Books up in North London, and we're also going to go to Centerprise Books, which was in East London, and hear from the owners of those premises, and they're going to tell us about their stories. But apart from that, we also have events on gentrification, as well as Black British civil rights. You can find all these events on our website or also on the Eventbrite page. So the Eventbrite page used to book this event. You can find these events listed there. There's about 16 of them so far, but there's many more to come. So last time we were here, we mentioned the fact that apart from the 4 bookshops we're looking at in our series here, there were several other bookshops, and a lady called Audrey Jugy compiled this list. So on the left-hand side, you can see a list of different Black bookshops which were around in the 70s, 80s, 90s. So if we can find the individuals involved, we might also do a session with them. But we're going to have 4 sessions with Michael LaRose, Mr. Eric Huntley, and Emmanuel Amevor over the next month or so. But there were other bookshops apart from the ones that we're focusing on right now. And if the name Audrey Jugy rings a bell, that's because she republished Mary Seacole's book. This is back in '84. And in the same way, I suppose that people don't really know much about Sarah Parker Remond right now in 2021, back in '84, not many people knew about Mary Seacole. So because of Miss Jugy's and also Ziggy Alexander's work, that book came out and was then a stepping stone to the international acclaim that Mary Seacole has now. Because the book came out, was sold in these very same bookshops on the left-hand side, people began to know about her. And then when Patrick Vernon organized his 100 Great Black Britons project in the early 2000s, Mary Seacole was voted top of the list and then became a kind of a core celebrity. And then, of course, that then led to a statue of her being unveiled a couple of years ago in front of St. Thomas Hospital, just there on the River Thames. So it just goes to show that one person or two people can make a difference. And, book publishing is a major part of kind of having Black history recognized and endorsed. It might take 20 years, but it's part of the process of actually having this history absorbed by the mainstream. So in this presentation, we're going to use the human archive of Elder Eric Huntley. But apart from Mr. Huntley's memory and brain, we can also access archives that are deposited in places like the Black Cultural Archives on the right-hand side, and also places like the Friends of the Huntley Archives, which is housed at London Metropolitan Archives. So we're going to use some archive material in this presentation, but I just want to kind of focus people's attention on this letter, because for many people, they are unaware of the level of violence that a Black bookshop would encounter in England, or United Kingdom, I should say, back in the 70s. So this is a letter from the Black Panthers. You can see the date there says 19th of March, 1973. And it says, "Dear brothers and sisters, between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. on Thursday, 15th of March, 1973, there were 5 petrol bomb attacks on Black people's businesses and houses in Brixton, Balham, and Mitcham, South London. Unity Centre at 74 Railton Road was among them and was completely destroyed. The bookshop with its total stock, the 2 occupied floors above with all their contents, and the basement, which was used by our poetry music group, all went up in flames. From the emergency issue plus other relevant press cuttings enclosed, you will find a chain of events leading up to Thursday and see, contrary to what the police were saying at first, that this is not the work of a demented individual or an isolated incident. The press are also projecting as the result of religious factionism between the Asian communities. We believe that is the work of a well-organized group putting in action what their masses in the local councils and government are openly advocating." So that's really interesting, because if you go to school in this country, you'll be taught about Americans being firebombs in the 60s and 70s. And yet you have the very same situation taking place here in Brixton, where these Black bookshops are being firebombed and destroyed. That wasn't just in Brixton, this happened across the country. So this is part of a reason for us putting this event on, is to actually tell these stories of resistance, of people trying to learn and then being oppressed by having a petrol bomb put through the window, and how those businesses still carried on for years, for decades. And apart from just selling educational books, they also organize events and fairs and speaking tours and book marches. And that's part of the story we hope to tell between now and the end of our books, violence and resistance sessions. So our host for today is Dr. Michelle Asantwa. She has a PhD in literature. She specialized in a version of African spirituality called Comfa, which you can find in Ghana. She's also a publisher in her own right. And of course, there's a link between selling books and publishing, obviously, as we'll find out later on. And she was also a lecturer at London Met University. And presently, she is the course leader on 2 separate courses. She runs the James Baldwin course and the African Women Resistance Leaders course. Her most recent book out now is by her, and it's called In Search of Mami Water. So it's called In Search of Mami Water, and you can find it online and also on her site, which is weirewithwords.com. So the next voice you're going to hear is Dr. Michelle Asantwa, and I'm now going to go and find Mr. Huntley and make sure you can actually speak on camera. So over to you, Michelle.
Hello, greetings. Thank you, Tony, for your introduction, and welcome everyone who has come for the first time or has returned from the previous time. I am really pleased that we are having the chance to do this. It was a bit touch and go because, as you can imagine, this legend of Baba Eric Huntley has just organized himself to come on the system, and we just need to guide him to put his camera on and put his mic on. So Baba, if you can hear me, which I'm sure you can, there you, wow, look at you. We just have to maybe adjust you slightly, but okay, because you're darkened out because of the lighting. So I don't know if you have a light that you could put on, and then we're able to see you. I can tell that you're in that lovely conservatory area. If you press the other button that's to your further to your left, you can now be unmuted. So it's got like a dash across to say you can't speak.
Okay.
Well done. Baba, I'm literally impressed by you. So yeah, I'm aware that he has the light behind him. Thank you. So if you put a light over you, if it's possible.
No, I don't have a light. I don't have an artificial light.
You don't have an artificial light in that room. Okay.
No.
Careful. If you, yeah, it's because the light is behind you, Baba. Oh, that looks kind of interesting. Did you? You look like. Can your it would be his computer, but can your computer go the other way, Baba, or anything? Is it your laptop that can? Yeah. That's looking good. If it faces the other way, so that the light is. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's looking good. Thank you so much. I mean, you know, I'm just amazed because just before we came on, I was guiding Baba of how to log into everything and, you know, just to understand and appreciate. Oh my word, look at you.
A bit better.
A lot better. And I'm pretty much impressed by that. Looks really great. Yeah, so everyone can now see your lovely face. And the fact is, as I was just saying, it is pretty amazing that you were even able to connect just from me guiding you to do that. So I think everybody should really feel honored and privileged that you're able to do this, and trust and hope that we can do this when we reach your age. So it's remarkable. And so now, Baba, just to remind you that we're just continuing relatively from where we left off last week, yeah? So it's just as before. So you don't need to, it's just a relaxed conversation that we were having last week. There's nothing thematic other than we're hearing around the books, violence and resistance, which is the general theme of these 4 part series, of which you have the privilege of doing 2. Next week it will be New Beacon, and the week after it will be Centerprise. Okay, you got me? You with me? You with us?
Yes, I'm with you. Yes.
Okay, so I just share some images. You can relax, and then we just discuss before. You don't need to. I just want to make sure that you're comfortable, and then I can just do that.
Okay.
So, and then Tony, if you can let me know whether that is visible and clear.
Yeah, looking good.
Okay, so yeah, so this is where we're at. We're back again to, and Baba, can you see that screen?
I can see that. Yes, I can.
Okay,
yes.
great. Okay, so let's just try and pick up and just say that these are some of the things that, just a smidgen of the things that it's really all about, and we're hoping to maybe cover some of these. Yeah, so these are the book fair. We could just talk a little bit about that. The fact that you met and produced some writers as well, other writers like James Baldwin, Louise Bennett, Maya Angelou, and so on. And your, you know, the Huntley archives, which is actually a major part of what you do now as well, something we can look at, as well as the No Color Bar exhibition, which was on for a few months in 2014, I believe. I still get that wrong. And obviously, you know, being a non-Nigerian. All right, so I think we can kind of go in. It's not quite the No Color Bar, but the video that I'm going to share is from the No Color Bar, which you can find on the No Color Bar. There was a site that was dedicated to that exhibition, so there's a lot of things in there. But I wanted us to pick up from, in fact, this image that we have, which is the iconic image of you in front of your bookshop, which we didn't really touch on last week. And we also didn't get the opportunity to talk about the the Brixton Riots, which was a consequence, or rather came out of the Black people's, the issues with the young children that were killed in New Cross fire and the organizing of that. So, but what this video will capture is some of that, right? About just the need to defend the bookshop, defend Black lives that were constantly under threat in that early part of 1980. Let's just have a look at this. I just hope we can hear it. Right.
The 1970s saw major cultural and political.
Sorry, I needed to turn.
Yeah, we've got sound, it's no problem. Carry on.
Okay.
Shifts in Britain, with police brutality, sus laws, and struggles in the labour market, education, and housing for migrant communities. There were also violent racist attacks, which triggered the Southall uprisings in 1979. Between 1977 and 79, Bogolovachor Bookshop was targeted by racist and fascist groups, with abusive graffiti daubed on the windows and doors, threatening calls from the Ku Klux Klan and National Front literature and excrement pushed through the letterbox. Other bookshops were also targeted, including New Beacon, Head Start, Grassroots, The Other Bookshop, and Centerprise, as well as in Nottingham, Manchester, and Birmingham. The Huntleys joined forces with other bookshops and formed the Bookshop Joint Action Group, which eventually resulted in national media coverage that forced the police to take action. At this moment, Black was a politically inclusive term that many African Caribbean, African, Southeast Asian, and Turkish groups made alliances with each other. Bogolovachor, New Beacon Books, and the Race Today Collective mobilized in response to the New Cross massacre, when 13 young Black people died in a firebomb attack in 1981. This was also the moment of radical Black politics, Pan-Africanism, when writers and intellectuals were engaged in political activism, as reflected in a number of journals and independent publications, such as Race and Class, New Left Review, and Race Today, who critically engaged with issues affecting the Black communities that were often misrepresented in the mainstream media. Disaffected youth would rise up in Brixton 1981, which spread to other inner city areas across the UK. Other uprisings would take place in 1985 and 2011. This social climate gave birth to a cultural revolution in the arts by Black practitioners born or who grew up in Britain. The Cascading Center from 1971 to 1992 was Britain's first arts and cultural center for the Black communities, and was the vision of the Guyanese-born architect and cultural activist, Oscar Abrahams.
Okay, Uncle, I'll just stop it there because there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of activities. And how did you get to bring everyone together? What was the ultimate motivation, and what really drove you and the others to do this and know that you could do it as part of a collective? Was that doing it as part of a collective a strategy and a necessary strategy? Well, let's take it the organizing I'm talking about. Is it because you were all sharing experiences? What was the ultimate strategy for organizing at that time in defense of your lives, your books, your everything? How did you go about doing that? What was the strategy?
Well, I think Michelle, yourself and the listeners will have to pay a price for having my age group on this program. Because like the elephant, our memories are very long, goes back very long. And my journey has to do with the fact that I didn't grow up with books. There were no books in the house when I grew up. I never had a satchel to carry books in or a bag. Fast forward my life, in 1953, the Jagans imported a lot of books, progressive books, which were sold very cheaply in Guyana. And I was able, myself and other comrades were able to read books for the very first time about what was happening in the world. And you know what happened in British Guyana in 1953-54? The government, through an MP called Mr. Lakou, passed a law banning the books. And many of those books, tons and tons of books were ditched into the Atlantic Ocean and into the Demerara River. That's my experience of Guyana. Books were banned. Books that could have been bought in England and the shops were banned in Guyana. Fast forward that to London, where we founded the Walter Rodney, the Bogle Overture Bookshop, and then the Walter Rodney Bookshop. A man came into the bookshop and he asked, and he sold left-wing newspapers. And he asked me, do you have permission to sell these books in the bookshop? There was a woman who used to come into the bookshop and she would buy greeting cards with black images on it. And she would stand by the counter and she would cut all of them up before paying for them. We didn't mind because she paid for it. I mentioned these two, which is more or less anecdotal in a sense, but nevertheless, it has to do with the journey in which that books and ourselves became very close. Now, one morning, in this period, the right-wing press were very powerful. The Nazis and the fascists and the Ku Klux Klan, they had a branch here. They were very active here. And one morning, Jessica went to the bookshop, and this is what she found. This is part of what she found. The fascists, whether they were local or whether they were influenced by the United States Ku Klux Klan, the excrement was dabbed on the floor and on the building. Unfortunately, the show windows were really made of solid, very, very insurable glass, very thick glass. And I think it was very difficult for them to break the glass. But this is what she found. And you can imagine the shock of her finding this. And when we called the police and complained to them to do something about it, what they said to us was that we are not Buckingham Palace. So you can conclude what they meant by that. That is, we can't expect 24-hour service because we're not Buckingham Palace. And as a matter of fact, very much their approach has been the same that they've had, the same that they did with other cases. They asked us whether we had shortchanged anybody. In other words, they never conceived the fact that there were racists and fascists out there who did not want the bookshop to exist. And they asked us, in other words, they're looking for the blame that if we robbed anybody or shortchanged them, that they came and did this to us because we shortchanged them. So that the Britain that they saw was a pure white Britain without any blemishes. And anybody like ourselves who want to accuse the establishment or accuse the country of being racist or having racists in its midst were completely fought against. of course, at this time, not only our bookshop was attacked. Lots of white community bookshops were attacked as well. New Beacon, Unity Bookshop was burnt down, and lots.
Yeah, I don't know if this is that, but this is another example, but I don't know which bookshop this is. This, I know this is not yours, but I don't know.
Unity, this is Unity, I think.
Okay.
This is Unity. But these are the extremes. These are the extreme cases of violence against learning. This is what it means, that violence against learning. But also we have to include that over the past 20 years, councils throughout the country have closed the libraries, and most of the books that we have sold to the libraries in the 80s and 90s no longer exist in the libraries anymore. So there's violence of a physical nature and violence against learning. Many of the books that we have sold, much of the books that we have sold to the libraries are no longer available for public reading. That's violence.
So yeah. So
and it affects,
so obviously, yeah, go on.
No, it affects working class people in the main, and those are the people that libraries were really organized to provide reading for them. That is violence.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, it was about trying to understand that. So now I can see obviously that strategy of organizing. It was around that shared and collective, the fact that it's impacting all of you, and you're recognizing that it is without the collective effort to organize in this way, then you are isolated basically. So whether it's Unity Bookshop, whether it was your bookshop, whether it was some of the newspaper, the journals as well, because I believe they were also attacked, their bases. So the need to organize collectively was there because you were sharing an experience of violence, is what I'm saying.
Yes, we organized, Jessica particularly, organized a joint book action committee, which brought in New Beacon, Race Today, and a couple of the white community bookshops. And we demonstrated outside the Home Office in St. James's Square, protesting against the actions of the police in not doing anything about it, and protesting against the racist and fascist attacks on the bookshop. So we resisted, and we said that we will not be, our slogan was, we will not be terrorized out of existence. We will not be terrorized out of it. No matter what you did to us, we're not going to go away. We have no way.
I mean, yeah. Bear in mind that the bookshop remained open for a good while after this.
Yes.
Until 1991, I believe. So did they actually do something? Did it work? Did they protect you, or was that?
Of course not. No.
I just was imagining that might have happened. No. Okay, let's move along to the other thing I wanted to mention was that obviously this year marks the 40-year anniversary of the
International Book Fair.
The Brixton Riots. Let's go back a minute. The Brixton Riots. But there's.
Oh, I see. Okay.
There was this idea in one of the Guardian article about there being some kind of change, that there was, the policing was different, and I don't know that is necessary. I mean, it might have shifted in a particular way, but has it been different? What would you say? Because you've got that long haul of a memory.
The police reintroduced, because the sus laws were not being used by hadn't been used by the police for many years. But then I think in 1976, the carnival, the police turned the carnival into a police carnival. They surrounded it, and there were hundreds or maybe thousands of police. There were more police than maybe carnivalists. And the youth, the young people took to the streets, and for the first time in the history of British police, the police retreated in the face of the Black youngsters. And I think that in order to make up for that, they must have felt ashamed that they had to run away, that the sus laws were really put into force, particularly in Brixton and other areas, in Bristol, in Liverpool, and so on. They really went out of their way to enforce it very, very seriously. And so the pressure was increased tremendously on the Black population, particularly the Black youth. The Black youth bore the brunt of police repression in those days.
Yeah, thanks for that, Uncle.
I think that's the reason. I think that might have been the motivating factor to make up for. Yeah.
I understand, because it was just mounting repression. I mean, I landed in this country in 1980 and was only, I was very young, but when we moved to the house I'm still living in, it's a vague thing in my mind that this big riot thing and what they call it, uprising, was taking place in 1981. I entered this country in that period. So it was just, for me, volatile, but you've been living this level of volatility and mounting pressures, whilst at the same time, I must say, doing things like having the bookshop, publishing books, campaigning on different fronts for young people, like you say, having the supplementary school, and then here having time and foresight to do this, Uncle, this, which is now 1982, the first international book
fair.
This has not been repeated, right, Uncle? There's not been another one like it.
Well, it's difficult to repeat, you know, it's like first love. You can't repeat the first.
No, but I mean just the fact of it.
No, it's very difficult. Okay. It's very difficult. I mean, it was Jessica, no, well,
go on, Uncle. Before you do that, though, who is in this picture?
Who is?
Can you recognize the people in the photograph?
Yes, the older woman in the middle there is Mums. Yes, she's Mums. She's the oldest person there, and the name signifies who she was. She was a mum to the community. She was a baby minder. She lived in Tufton Park. She was everything for us. As the name implies, she was a mum to all the immigrants, all the single people, all the people who were around, and a mum to Walter Rodney. Walter stayed at her. We feted at her. A lot. It's a long story. But John is there. There's myself.
John Rose.
Jessica is where? That's Jessica there.
Yeah.
No, that's Jessica here, I think.
Yeah, I know this is Auntie.
And
this is John Rose.
John Rose. I'm looking for Layla and
Layla. Is she in this
Aquarag, and
I can
Sarah
see
Sarah White somewhere.
And I can see Janice.
Janice, yes. Yeah.
And I can see
Linton.
Right, sorry, let me just stop that a minute. And Keith, right?
Yes, Keith, yeah. He's very tall there.
Tall and slim, and it's a lovely photo. Let's see if we can hear.
And
Go on.
No, I'm trying to remember her name. Yes.
Who are this one here?
Yeah. No, this one here.
This side.
The third from the left. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
I don't know, but what I liked about this, obviously, is this was a tremendous event.
This is what you call an iconic photograph.
Absolutely iconic, and I just wanted to read, for the sake of the list, that the International Book Fair of Radical Black and Third World was first held in London 1982. Trinidadian historian and activist C.L.R. James kicked off this first one. And the book fair also took place annually from 1982 to 1991, and then it was biannual. It actually went quite long.
Went to Bradford and Manchester.
Manchester, Bradford, Leeds, and other cities. There were 12 altogether. So you were bringing together. This is from a website that was looking at, particularly New Beacon, which we'll be looking at next week as well. But it was saying you're bringing continents together, and also writers, publishers, distributors, musicians, filmmakers. This is just a mammoth thing that's no wonder you're saying, it's difficult to have that birth again. So
just quickly, Michelle, someone says the lady is Pat Dick. The third lady from the left is Pat Dick, is from the chat room.
Pat Dick, that's right. Yes, Pat Dick. Yes, Pat Dick. That's Pat Dick. And Aquarug is somewhere about, but Pat Dick, yes, that's Pat Rug. Yes.
Okay,
Pat
brilliant.
Dick,
Thank you.
Pat Dick, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, really iconic photo. There are people behind there that I can't see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a tremendous thing, and I think it's really important for people to understand, just even the organizing of this, how massive that would have been.
And we did this without any. There were no grants. We never applied for grants.
Where did people stay? Who paid for their travel?
And the visitors from overseas stayed with relatives, friends. I had about a dozen persons at where I lived, at 141 Coolder Shore Road, from overseas. Persons from Canada I had here. For the first time I met a Sioux, S-I-O-U-X, a Native American woman. She was here, and persons from Canada, a group from Canada was here staying with me, and another a poet. I can't remember her name, but she didn't stay there from the States. She didn't stay very long because she wasn't very well. I can't remember her name now. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. How did you? The question I had in my mind just went out. How did you? I'll come to it. Let's listen to a little bit of this from Mikey Smith.
Old pirates, yes, they rob I, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hands was made strong by the hands of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever had. Redemption song. Say natty natty, no bother dash way your culture. Say natty natty, no bother dash way your culture. For the teacher man know it, but him not tell the sheep that rata, no bring back new teeth. When you dash where the spliff and you take up the sniff. Remember, yard is your mama pan grong you sleep. I say she take you picnic when you're tired fi breed. And if you no sleep, your mama no sleep. And if you go die, she'll beg God let she die too. So say natty natty, no bother dash way your culture. You know country come to town, you born a jam down. So don't forget your gal a yard and take one from abroad and lick up on the beach and the ejaculate between a Time magazine. Them spread it. Pan a booyah scene says $1 day, dread better you ball your head. Say natty natty, be aware of the cultural smuggler. Say natty natty, no bother dash way your culture.
I could literally listen to that that whole.
Is this dubbed?
What do you mean dubbed?
Well, so I might be using the wrong word. What do I mean by dubbed?
Do you mean, is it dub poetry?
No.
I know you know that. So what?
Because on the night,
Yes.
we had to ask him to speak slowly because persons couldn't understand him. And he comes over much clearer here.
I think.
But leave that aside. The words cannot describe when he came on the stage and he performed. You can't describe the feeling of it, For the first time in London, not only for myself, but for most of the people, I've never heard anything as genuine as that. Tremendously uplifting. No words can really describe it. No words at all. And that was the highlight of the book fair, not only of the evening, of the book fair.
Which is tremendous, Uncle, because I put him here because people might not be aware of, the power of not only Mikey Smith, but of the nation language that he is inhabiting, as well as the expression of his Rastafarianism, or that version of Rastafarianism that he exhibits in this way. So I thought it would be good to look at that. And actually there is a little bit more, because this was called the Radical Book Fair. And it's things like that, is actually being bold enough to have someone like Mikey Smith perform, as well as others, because of course Mikey Smith is a son, if you like, of Louise Bennett, who, gave us nation language and so on. So let's hear his reasoning on language. It's just
Michael Smith, a contemporary of Johnson, was one of dub poetry's most charismatic figures. A powerful performer, Smith immersed himself in the culture and politics of his native Jamaica.
I chose to write in the Jamaican language because it was the language that one could easily identify the rhythmic patterns of an ancestral linkage. It was a language that I could dance to, just hearing it being expressed by the people.
It a come, fire a go burn, blood a go run. He going go take you, he going go take you. So Maggie Thatcher, you better watch her. You're going to meet your Waterloo. You can't stay there a screw. I subpoena you from the liquor fella. Call Nelson Mandela who went on a matter. For you stop support the blood sucking eye. Call apartheid. For it to come, fire a go burn, blood a go run. He going to take you, he going to take you. And if you in your mansion get some passion, he going to bust out in there like a fusion bomb.
Smith, a constant critic of Jamaican government policy under Edward Seaga, was found stoned to death in 1983.
I remember hearing that, Uncle, and what happened when you guys heard that, because this was actually later on. So you had the book fair, 1982, formed, he'd come before in 1981, and then 1983 he's back in Jamaica, and we get the news that this tragic murder had taken place. What did you do?
There was a meeting, the elections were taking place at the same time, and there was an electioneering meeting that he attended, and he must have criticized the person who was speaking, the opposition MP who was speaking, and the crowd started to, well, Jamaica is a rock stone country. There's rock stone all over the place, and he was stoned virtually to death, really. But that was one of the most saddest occasions that we've been through, really. That here's a star, it's like a star blazing in the sky, and you're really uplifted by his visit, and then suddenly he's been removed from us. Really, really terrible, really terrible.
Yeah,
really shocking.
And also on the back, because you're still at this point grieving for the loss of Walter Rodney. So
yes, 1980. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we have this this demonstration as well, and lots of other demonstrations were there, or was it just?
I think this is one from Mikey Smith. Huh?
Yes, which
I can't believe it. Yeah, this is I was in the States when he passed away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When he was killed, rather.
Yeah.
That's demonstrating in protest about the murder of Mikey.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I just find this image quite, you know, Auntie Jessica doing what she's been doing,
all her life,
and looking very, just strong in that, in the faith of her struggle, really. Mm-hmm. There are other images like these, of course, with the demonstrations that you were part of, and or that was a part of it. I just wanted to remind. Can you see this one, Uncle? That you remind.
Linton.
Linton was also obviously in that tradition,
mm-hmm.
the dub poetry and performing. What was it like publishing? Because Mikey's was the oral, and now you're going to then turn that in the version of Linton Kwesi's Dread Beaten Blood into text. What was that process like? Because, like you said, looking at the language, not many people were really doing things like that.
Well, we didn't come. Well, Jessica and myself, we didn't come from that strong Creole patois language at all. And the Jamaican language is exceptional. Each island has its own image and Creole idioms and so on, but Jamaica is distinctly, individually island, or that only Jamaica is like that. And so we really needed help to assess the work because we didn't grow up with we grew up with standard English. Mm-hmm. And Andrew Salty brought Linton to 141 Collishaw Road one evening with his well, in those days with a manuscript, and Andrew recommended that we should have a serious look at him. And Andrew and Linton worked with the draft before it was presented for printing. But once Andrew had said that this is something worth publishing, that was enough for us to do so. Yeah.
And I'm really glad you did. I studied this at university, and then I later taught it. So, and it's being used that way. So that's really brilliant. Okay, so let's move forward to just looking at some of the day-to-day, other than having to deal with some of the racist stuff. Let's go forward into forward looking at what's happening.
What's her name again?
It's Louise Bennett, but Miss Lou otherwise. So this is another clip as well.
That evening, have you?
Go on.
Yeah. No, that evening. What's her name?
Louise Bennett.
No. I was thinking of Enter Shango. You know the name?
No.
Enter Shango. I'm pronouncing it very badly. Enter Shango.
The Shake in Shoke, NSOKE in Shoke.
No. Enter Shango.
No, that one.
An American poet. And she came to the bookshop to do a reading. And when she came, we had persons taking photographs and a camera crew. And she was very concerned about the fact that we might be exploiting her being there and maybe selling the pictures to make money.
Okay.
And we had to explain to her that this is not how we operate and so on. And she was a bit upset. And Louise Bennett came in full of life, full of Jamaican sunshine and so on. And she hugged and I
think they mention it, they pronounce it in this clip.
Oh, I see, okay.
Because I know.
And she took over the evening. Her brilliance and her the characters she took over the evening. And what happened there too is that a group of young people we had the opening there at the bookshop. A group of young people, including Joanne, Errol Lloyd's wife, they organized a reading of the poet's work on that evening. And as a matter of fact, that evening we launched Banks Bail. Do anybody remember the Jamaican?
What do you mean?
We launched
Which version? The Guyanese version?
At that evening, and mums catered and had refreshments and so on. It was really a lovely evening. And Louis Bennett was the star of the evening, of course. Really lovely.
Lovely.
The bookshop was really unique in the sense that publishers, I can't remember publishers launching books. And I can't remember publishers inviting school children to attend sessions and inviting the public. For the first time, for most of us, you read a book and you put it down. And we never knew the author. This was a period when readers were able to attend a reading session and see the author. They were human beings. And so the consumers and the consumed were able to relate to each other. So when you read Selvon's Lonely Londoners, you can see Selvon, you can talk with him. And the school children came in, there were drumming sessions, there were poetry readings, there were whole host thing. Really.
I mean, I have a sense that, publishers did launch. Who was invited? It depends on who the publishers were and how exclusive they might have been, but and what kind of a launch that looked like. But I have a sense that launches did take place because that was part of how publishers would obviously get their initial burst of funds. But how it happened obviously would differ between publisher to publisher and time to time. But should we listen to a little bit of this?
The Huntleys were forced to move the bookshop to other premises after their neighbors complained that they were using their home for commercial purposes. Bogle Bookshop subsequently opened in Chignall Place, West London, with a literary event on the 20th of November 1975, attended by many young black people and featuring readings by Linton Kwesi Johnson, Eric Huntley, and George Lamin. Bogle Overture became a cultural hub for the community, a drop-in centre for parents, school students and teachers who sought guidance about their studies, employment and experiences of racist institutional cultures and racist managers. The bookshop led the way amongst other independent bookshops in having readings where writers actively engaged with their readers. There were many memorable events, such as Louise Bennett Coverley, or Miss Lou, whose poetry, folk songs and stories, performed in Creole or nation language, electrified a mainly Caribbean audience, even though the main author in the event was the African-American Tazaki Shank. There was also the humor of the Jamaican poet Valerie Bloom, the music of the Guyanese flutist Keith Waite, the Caribbean novelist Faustin Charles, Kenyan novelist Ngugi wa Thiong'o, the South African women's rights activist and politician Ellen Kazweo, the Cotitian poet and filmmaker Imru Bakari Caesar. Running the bookshop was a daily creative challenge, and Jessica could be found at the back of the bookshop, managing the business of bookselling, typing letters on an electric typewriter, making phone calls and responding to inquiries from visitors. The bookshop also hosted a number of international visits of artists and arts groups, such as the Sistering Theatre Collective from Jamaica. The bookshop closed in 1990.
I mean, yeah, it was everything, right? It was just doing a lot of stuff, and you know, the managing of it. I mean, we take these things for granted. That must have been quite intensive. What was the managing of the bookshop like? Or did you didn't know? You were working elsewhere?
No. I worked full time at the bookshop from 1976. Jessica did a tour of the Caribbean and America to sell books, and I worked. I had to be at the bookshop, and I didn't go back to insurance business, but. Jessica was the main person to operate the bookshop, and during the summer months particularly, she would be there from about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I had to take breakfast to her at the bookshop because we didn't live very far. I had to take breakfast to the bookshop for her. She left very early, and she spent, that was her life really. That was really her life, The thing is too that books and bookshops and publishing and that kind of cultural activity, you relate to it as being done by middle class people who've gone to university and who've gone to secondary schools and who've had a certain amount of intellectual and educational education. Jessica left school like myself at 15, 16, and she started to work. So that is a good example to working class men and women, what could be achieved if the opportunity arises and if you go with the flow. Doing nothing without an option. The situations were created and somebody had to do it, and Jessica stepped in to do it. After I could well see, just after Groundings was published, Jessica worked at Solicitors on Northfields Avenue. And somehow she saw the future in publishing, and she just left going to work at the solicitor's office, and she became a full-time publisher without any discussions or arguments or any thinking about it. She just gravitated towards publishing almost naturally from that day. And there was no money around either. But that's
that was my next question. You know, the profitability of some of these.
That's another matter.
Well, it is, but it's an interesting one because, you know, often people, it might look to others that there is, it might look easy or it might appear profitable, but often some of these businesses, especially because you're not trying to get funds or whatever, are running at losses, but yet they maintain themselves because of that commitment, which I can see from Auntie Jessica and yourself and others who were there. So these now here, Uncle, these images are, when I speak to you sometimes and I ask you to say, oh, what was it like meeting Angela Davis? Or what was it like meeting? You were like, oh, well, before, when I, you know, she wasn't Angela Davis, you know, she wasn't this big, you know, person then. But can you, so the others, obviously we know that this is Ngugi wa Thiong'o. And this one here, can you recognize this one? This is Auntie Jessica, and this is Martin Luther King Jr. Is that right?
No, I don't recognize him, no.
And this is
that
Beverly Bryan, Dr. Beverly Bryan.
Okay. What on the
in the middle here?
In the middle. Okay.
Yeah, I can't recognize the other two, but look at Auntie Jessica's posture. She looks pretty fierce. It didn't seem that Auntie Jessica was flawed or like you said, coming from that working class background and, you know, not having the, you know, the levels of education to engage with different sets of people. She seemed to do this kind of seamlessly, would you say? Would you agree that she did that with a sense of, you know, her
she was just her normal self, really. And the thing is that if she didn't know how to do something, she had the capacity and the ability to get other people to help her. I think that's the thing too, that she was able to get other people to help her to do what she might not have been able to do. So that's another thing about somebody who wants to succeed. If you want to succeed, you have to take people with you and to get people to help you. If you want to win, you go it alone. She never wanted to win. She wanted to succeed, and therefore she sought the help. There were volunteer people coming in to do an hour work, to do 2 or 3 hours work, to look at a manuscript, to do lots of little bits and pieces, and so that's how she managed to. And it was a learning curve, actually. When she went to the States, and she was able to attend the American Librarians Conference. For the first time, she was exposed to an international conference where you had books from all over the United States of America, and most of the people were Black publishers and writers, and that really opened her eye to what is possible. And that's another thing too, is that reading and traveling can really enlarge your perspective and the capabilities of what you can attempt. That really helped her. Nothing was impossible for her.
Brilliant. Barbara, this is actually
what's his name?
James Baldwin.
James Baldwin. I think this might have been at the West Indian Student Center. Right.
I mean, I was trying to find a clip or an image where you and Auntie is in, but they've actually taken it down now. This is did this film. It was called Baldwin's N-Word, and this is just a clip from it, which I need not play, but that, because obviously this was back in 1969. I'm sort of jumping back, but you get to speak to. I'd like you to actually talk about when Baldwin, when James Baldwin did come here. What did he do? There was something that you told me a little while ago about, you know, the level of his activism. What did he do?
I think one of the things he did is that Baldwin started. He started at fundraising for a building for West Indians in London. A fund was set up and for persons to contribute towards a building. Nothing came of it, but it's the kind of support and dream that he would have shared with us, that we should try to attempt. But of course, again, not much money was around.
Not much money was around, but at least he saw.
But the need was there. The need
yeah. So, and here, I love this picture, or both of the images really, but I think this one we generally see with Auntie, the two afros.
this was with Auntie, and I think this was in Lewisham Town Hall, I think.
With Maya Angelou when she came.
And Angela Davis is at Hackney Town Hall, or Hackney Library, I think. Yeah. Two heads are better than one.
Yes, I like that. I mean, it's just to show again to the viewers just the power of these images. You know, you just can't, like, there's so much going on. There's trust, there's respect, there is, you know, mutual understanding of what is needed to be done as, you know, as empowered Black women. Did you get to meet? What did you speak with Mama Maya Angelou at all?
I was selling books that night. I think. I don't think I did, but
oh, right. Okay.
I don't think I did.
Yeah, so there was always this bookshop. She came over here to do her own
to launch one of her books.
Yeah, at this point, yeah. I think she was just probably getting to that fame.
Yeah. Another aspect of our activities too is that we were the first, one of the first, or maybe the first, to connect to the American writing scene. So all the Black publishers and the Black publishers from the States, we imported their books and we made it available to the British public. Others followed on.
Mm-hmm.
We were the ones who really started it. Just went to the States for the Black Writers, Black Publishers Association, and she was able to make contact with Black publishers in the States and writers, and brought that influence back to London, and hence the book fair, and hence inviting other persons to participate in activities here.
What I didn't get to find, Uncle, was that there is an image, there's a picture that I have of you. It's kind of a long view when Angela Davis came here.
To
the Royal Albert. Was it the Royal Albert?
No, the Festival Hall.
Royal Festival Hall.
Festival Hall.
And she was there. Yeah, that was an interesting one as well, because at that point she wouldn't have remembered. You wouldn't have remembered you.
I don't think so. No, I don't think.
But for those listening, what happened was we knew that she was going to be there, and Uncle wanted to give her some books, especially Doing Nothing Is Not an Option.
And a copy of the card, and a copy of the card.
Oh yes, a card of this. Yeah. And we kind of managed to get backstage. We tried to get backstage, and then they were keeping us there, and then eventually the program was set. And the people, where is question time? You waited.
I walked up to the stage, and I indicated to the coordinator that I wanted to her attention, and she completely ignored me for a good 5-10 minutes until Angela Davis realized that I was really. It was a very embarrassing time because there are hundreds of people there. And I'm standing by the stage waving to the coordinator to say, I want to have a word. And Angela Davis kindly got up and walked towards me. And I was able to give her the book and a photograph of herself and Jessica. And I just exited the hall from that time. Once I accomplished my
your mission.
I just.
And it was brilliant. We don't even have time to go into it because it was quite deep. And I was so proud of you. We were way up in the stalls, just shouting and screaming and going, yeah, Uncle, go, Uncle.
Well, it was a meeting. Most 9 out of 10 persons who were there were women. So it was a really,
I know. It was the women's event that they have.
And this man is
elder man.
This man, well, at that time,
they thought we're not going to let him
invading the space of. You can't leave the women to do their own thing, invading the space.
No, Uncle.
Well, that's what it looked like. Huh?
No, well, yeah,
What's this other one? What's this one?
Okay, so here we have Black Teacher by Beryl Gilroy.
Gilroy, oh yes.
Yes, and because courtesy of her son, Paul Gilroy, this is even doing this session. So, it's that generational, intergenerational connection and link. And of course, you taking on to do this, to choose to bring this book.
She was the first Black headmistress. Huh?
Yes, principal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the reason why I've put this is where it says Beckford Primary School. They renamed West Hampton after a vote ops against Beryl Gilroy tribute. Were you aware of this?
Have they renamed it?
Yes. So they've renamed it Hampstead instead of Gilroy Primary School.
Yeah.
Apparently, they're saying that these parents and the teachers and the students voted against that name, preference for West Hampstead.
Yes, I didn't know. Yeah, okay.
So it will have this new name from the name Beckford, which is linked to the slave trade.
West Hampstead.
To West Hampstead. And I just think I was so disgusted when I learned that. This is the first Black principal, did amazing work in this school. And I don't know why it had to necessarily go to that kind of, I suppose it's a democratic principle, but they decided to rename it on the back of the whole Black Lives issue from.
I see, okay.
Right? Yeah. And so this is the name they agreed on. Nothing, it's just the name of a place, and it will be in September. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that for those who are not aware that you published a book of the first Black principal in the UK.
I suppose Hampstead didn't appreciate to have the name of a Black woman as on one of the schools. So
yeah, we had a long discussion about this.
It's not Brixton, you see. It's not Peckham. It's not Peckham.
Well, even Brixton, you know.
Lewisham or Lewisham.
Could have another conversation about why they've got rid of Olive Morris House and so on, but
yes,
time. I'm fast forwarding slightly. Uncle, let me know if you get tired. We're going to try and go a little bit longer before we questions. All right. If at any point you get tired, you can just walk out that door. And I'll understand. All right. But I think you're looking great. I think you're doing well, and I trust that the audience is enjoying our conversation as well. But I just wanted us to fast forward into the Huntley archives and just listen to this a minute.
My name is Eric Huntley, and I'm one of the founder members of the publishing house Bogle Overture Publications, which was founded in 1968 in London. 11 years ago, we deposited, that is Bogle Overture Publications, deposited our archives or records at the London Metropolitan Archives. But it's not simply a record of the publishing house, because the publishing house have been political and cultural activists for over 30 years in London. So that we have records of not only our activities, but the activities of the many sections of the community, which also was active in the cultural and political life of the country. One of the decisions we made was that one way of publicizing what the contents of the archives and to bring it alive was to organize an annual conference. And that has been taking place over the past 11 years. We are in our 11th year now. The conference is important for many reasons. It gathers people together. It's a meeting place of many continents, many communities come to the conference to share their experience and to participate in the conversations to it. One of the roles and purposes of the conference is to help people to discover themselves, because in the archives, their histories are recorded. So it's very important for persons to be there with the archives and to share their experiences. So the conference as a showcase for our histories, not only on racism, but also the activism that we've made in order to combat the racism is very crucial for us. In the 1980s and 90s, when the cuts from the recently elected government came into operation, we lost the bookshops. We had to close the bookshop. And unfortunately, we didn't have the technology or the facility of appealing to you. And now we have the technology, now you're out there. We had to close the bookshop years ago, and we don't want to lose the conference on this occasion. So this is an appeal to you to give generously for not only for this conference, but for future conferences. Thank you very much for viewing this recording.
Okay, Uncle. I love listening to that. That was the 2017 Huntley conference appeal that you were doing. It did go ahead because they've all gone ahead. And what I particularly like is that they they do, you know, they do need resources and funds, but somehow they have managed to keep going. We didn't have one this year though, did we? Are we hoping to resume the conferences again? Obviously we didn't have one because of lockdown, but what year, how many what would we be now? That was 2017, so it's well in its like 15 years going into that.
About that, yeah.
Yeah. So I
just quickly, but in their message from Beverly, and she's saying that they're organizing the 40th anniversary as a theme for the annual Huntley Conference for 19th of February 2022, taking place at London Metropolitan Archives. And it's going to be a microcosm of the book fair with publications, cultural contribution, and intergenerational discussions. That's from Beverly. So there's something happening next year in February.
Okay, brilliant. Excellent. Thank you. So that's just to give people an idea. And these are some of, I'm just going to whiz through these because these are some of the themes and the brochures that we've had for the conferences. I mean, they give a sense of the dynamism that, you know, generally we were seeing in some of the other things, whether it was at the bookshop and so on. So we tried to capture that in these events, and this is again some of the themes. So if you can just look out for the next conference, which will be in 2022, and this is just images I'm just whizzing through from some of them. Yeah, so it's usually very well attended. The first time I went, certainly Auntie Jessica was there, and it's continued to go. Okay. And then this was where the Huntley's Online, which you can also look up, they launched this website, which was a big thing at the time, wasn't it, Uncle? This was in 2014.
Where was this?
This is actually at the
oh,
gosh, what is it? Not the Guildhall. It's
Victoria and Albert Museum.
Thank you very much, the Victoria and Albert Museum.
Okay.
And yeah, very, very well attended by, you know, the community, well supported. This is Uncle's family, great grandchildren. And the book was also launched, this book, which you now know, or at least maybe Beverly can put it into the chat where you can access that. So yeah, Uncle, Auntie had not too long passed here. What was this experience like for you, actually, Uncle? Did you, because this is one of the first, this is quite a big thing that was happening. I remember it being quite momentous. Or was this just another of those ones you're like, yeah, I'm here still going? What did this feel like for you, this new journey? Because now you're going online.
Where was this?
This is the same day. This is the Victoria and Albert.
Victoria and Albert Museum.
That's Marge there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. I remember now. Yeah.
You remember now?
Yeah. But I can't remember what it was like up to what it was for me, really.
You were just there, just hugging up people, watching, because they had a little performance of.
I plead tiredness now.
Okay, good.
As an excuse.
Yeah, no, that's all right. But then we just need to go to the no color bar. Yeah, which was, this is what it was. It was a flowering of popular as well as fine art, music, poetry, and literature, which came out of what were then called the Black and Third World migrant settler communities, African Caribbean, continental African, Asian, and Latin America. So we had this exhibition that was here over a few months. And this was pretty tremendous as well, Uncle, right? Because you're now here in the Guildhall Art Gallery, which was never, again, it's the first, right? It's a first of its kind.
It, it was one of the doors which were opened I think fortunately our archives were lodged at the London Metropolitan Archives, and that gave us a kind of opening to the gallery. When again it might happen, I don't know. It's one of those one in a century kind of opportunities. Well, one of the things it did reveal to me was that a number of artists, without calling any name, a number of artists that were around in the 50s and 60s and 70s found it very difficult or impossible to find exhibition spaces in museums to exhibit their work. And many of them had to leave and go to the States. Like many of our nurses had to go to the States to get promotion. And so that many of them could not make a proper living. And so the opportunity for No Color Bar exhibition, many of them were able, for the first time, that they were able to obtain a space to have some kind of accreditation to their work in a recognizable gallery for full-fledged artists. Many of them, it was the first time. So we opened the space and created an opportunity for many of our artists, which was a tremendous thing. And the number of people who viewed the exhibition, I understand, it was more attended by more people than any other exhibition in the history of the art gallery.
Uncle, that is beautiful, right? That is just a tremendous thing. I literally think that that is wonderful, that it's able to have attracted that level of participation, and the fact that you were able to even do it. I mean, there's a whole story around the Guildhall and the center of empire, and a discussion about that can be had. But certainly for those who are listening, if they want to know more about that No Color Bar, they could look up No Color Bar, and the website has more details about it.
What I need to mention is that our names, Jessica and Eric Huntley, are the names that are mentioned, but we couldn't do it on our own, as would be understood and expected. And there's a whole team of people, Maureen Roberts,
Beverly,
Beverly came in towards the end.
Dr. Margaret Andrews.
Margaret Andrews.
Brother Fawar Khan.
A whole host of people.
And the artists themselves.
And artists themselves, yeah. We could not have done it on our own at all, yeah.
And then moving on swiftly to, of course, the Blue Plaque, which is in your, also in your honor. I love this picture of us, obviously. But this was at the end of a long day where you and Auntie and Bogle were honored with a Blue Plaque here. This is you looking, what are you looking like? Wow.
No idea.
You were looking very humbled, I think is the word. And I remember at the time you expressing that, because of course, look, these are all your neighbors, your friends, everybody had come out. The street was, I know you've spoken about the street brimming usually anyway, because you used to have street parties, which is a whole nother lecture presentation. But your neighbors were all out. This street was blocked off to hold this event, and this was the community center that we went to celebrate afterwards, which is just to give you an idea. These weren't even half the people that were blockading the street. This is bringing us fast forward into your 90th. This is actually in 2019 when you're going to become 90. Do you remember this?
I remember this, yes.
Yes, this was when the Pan-African Society Community Forum honored your birthday, and the community recognizing you.
For which I've been very grateful.
And this is everybody giving tributes to you for your work. And so that was brilliant as well.
The only person who was not there was Jessica.
But she was there.
In spirit. Right. My family came over from the States to join me in the celebration. my sister and niece.
That was the party, but before we even got to the party, we actually did this as well. We had, this is when you returned to Guyana for that Sankofa. And so we had a book event where you presented and where you read from, at that time, one of your latest publication, which was, the book on...
The first time I'm seeing these pictures. Okay.
Oh, okay.
That's my nephew.
I know that's not true, but okay.
No. That's my nephew.
Yes. Your nephew and his
wife Ruth.
This is Scott Singer Key, one of our Way with Words author, meeting you for the first time. This is D'Souza from WPA.
Karen D'Souza.
Karen D'Souza, and this is the day we did that event at Murray House.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And of course, I needed to mention, this was you actually doing an article that you did because you were interviewed by the Stabroek News, and this is what you said, and I think it's very poignant about Auntie Jessica. And to let others know that there's a film that's being made. It's in production. It's being made by Claudia, the producer, Claudia Coulter, working title Grounded Together. So we look forward to that.
And Claudia Tomlinson is doing her doctorate on Jessica.
Yep. So that's brilliant. Yep. Good. Thank you for letting us know that. I think we're at the end, Uncle. This is you with your family, us in Guyana. Impressed by your stamina for the most part in Guyana. Yeah. Of course, this is you.
Where am I there? Where am I?
This is at the Burnham Mausoleum Botanical Gardens, which is a whole other story. There's so much. Everything is a story. Every image is a story. There's you resting against Burnham. I don't even have time because we've literally got to stop. Let the others see. But there's lots in this image, lots going on, lots we could talk about. And likewise, what was it like meeting? This is the president, Donald Ramata. Yeah. So this was another day in the life of Huntley, another whole story. You managed to get for the first time. Was this the first time you went to the Kaichor?
Yes, I did. Yes, first time.
Okay, with your family. So okay, we come to the end. This is you taking a walk out on the Atlantic.
That's it. The seawall.
The seawall. The first time you went back, I can see your face is just enchanted, as though you've never seen these pictures before.
No.
But you had the experience. Do you remember?
Yep.
Yes. And this is it. Thank you so much, Baba.
Thank you.
For your work.
Thank the audience and the listeners.
For your energy.
The struggle continues.
Thank you.
We look forward to attending lots more similar activities to share with you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you stay there, Uncle. Don't go. I'm going to just stop sharing unless you really do want to fly through that door, which I hope you don't. Tony, yeah.
Right, we're going to have a Q&A now. I just have to tell you what's coming up and say thank you to our sponsors. So we're going to have a Q&A shortly. Just have to say thanks to the Sarah Parker Remond Centre who have made this event possible. And if you missed part one of this interview is on the Black History Walks YouTube channel, which is at the top there. Yeah, so that's the address, youtube.com/Black History Walks. And the first part of this session is already on there. And this session will be on this very same page in about 2, maybe 3 days. And apart from that, you can find about 175 different videos on Black British history, which you can watch. And also we have some of our previous lectures, our previous talks on this very same page, which you can have a good look at when you're in the mood. I mentioned we're from Black History Walks, and what we do is we organize walks, talks, and films on the Black History of London each month, all year long since 2007. So every month of the year, apart from last year and the horrible thing that happened then, we have a physical event, walking tours in 12 different parts of London, films at the BFI South Bank, and talks, normally in university halls, but now they're being done online. And we also have a river cruise, which I'll mention later on. This is a bit about the Sarah Parker Remond Centre. They're doing fantastic work. You can find them on Twitter, on Instagram, or Facebook. Just tap in Sarah Parker Remond Centre, and you can see some of the stuff they're doing. And this was a slide to kind of recognize the fact that apart from the bookshops we're looking at in our 4 sessions on books, next week is New Beacon, after that it's going to be Centerprise, there were other bookshops around the country doing this same sort of fantastic work against horrendous odds. So we're looking at 4, but there were many more than 4. And actually, some people say there were more Black bookshops back in the 90s than there are now. And I should mention Audrey Dugy again, because she published the book, The Wonderful Adventures of Mrs. Mary Seacole, which then led on to her becoming a household name now. So if it wasn't for that book that she published with Sigurd Alexander back in '94, we might not know of Mary Seacole, and she might not be in a curriculum. There might not be a statue about her, but that book kind of laid the groundwork for the sort of things that we access now fairly easily because of what people like Miss Dugy and Miss Alexandra and Mr. Huntley and Mrs. Huntley were doing back in the 70s and 80s. All the bookshops we mentioned are linked into Saturday schools. So it's another outcome of their activism in that, apart from selling books and having educational sessions in the bookshops, they'd also sponsor or have a Saturday school in their premises. So we're having 2 events. We're having 2 events looking at the superb success of Saturday schools, because they were very successful and they actually got some of their kids into Oxford and Cambridge, or actually stopped them getting kicked out of school. So we're going to have a couple of the newest Saturday schools and some of the older Saturday schools speak about their successes since the 1960s, 70s, because some of these schools were set up in 68 and 72, and they're still around even now. So that's taking place on May the 14th, and it'll be as interesting as this event has been, because it's part of the same story. The Black Liberation Front set up a bookshop, and in fact, we've tracked down, I say we, not me, the Young Historians Project. They're all between 16 to 25, and they actually tracked down the members of the Black Liberation Front from the 70s, found them, interviewed them, made a documentary on them, put the documentary online, made an exhibition about them, and on the 15th of June, we're going to have a Q&A with the young people who made the film, who made the exhibition, and the members of the Black Liberation Front that are still around. So that'll be another really interesting and unusual event. And again, that's brought to you for free. Just can go online and book your tickets right now. This is a film we're showing shortly.
During my first semester at MIT, I got computer vision software that was supposed to track my face. It didn't work until I put on this white mask. I'm thinking, all right, what's going on here? Is it the lighting conditions? Is it the angle at which I'm looking at the camera, or is there something more? That's when I started looking into issues of bias that can creep into technology.
Our ideas about technology that we think are normal are actually ideas that come from a very small and homogeneous group of people.
Vast amounts of data at incredible speeds.
Everybody has unconscious biases, and people embed their own biases into technology.
This kid got stopped as a result of facial recognition misidentification, and then used that as justification to search you. This is an innocent child.
Racism is becoming mechanized.
Systemic issues are only going to be hardwired into new technologies.
It's not just face classification, it's any data-centric technology.
Every day, we are all being scored.
Who gets hired, who gets housing.
I am making predictions for your life right now.
The people who own the code deploy it on other people, and there is no accountability.
Management at Atlantic Towers wanted to install the facial recognition software. Pretty much turn this place into Fort Knox.
The technology is being rapidly adopted, and there are no safeguards.
we are socially controlled in a way that we don't see.
Technology that analyzes faces could be biased, but the company is pushing it anyway.
What demographic is it most effective on?
White men.
Show me that it's going to be fair, that it's legal before you put it out. That's what we don't have yet.
It's going to take people coming together, striving for justice in this age of automation.
All right, so the fight for civil rights has gone online, and that program, that film is all about the new fight and how they're gonna prosecute it. So if you go to our website, you should find a list or a link to a list of events that we're planning and having for the next couple of months or so. So you can see there's a huge variety of events you can kind of tap into. If you're interested in hip hop, there's one. If you're interested in computers, there's one. If you want to talk about Saturday schools, so there's a whole bunch of stuff happening. You just go to the website and check it out. Or you can also use the Eventbrite page that you booked this event on. So Eventbrite has a list of the 16 events we've got coming up. You just go there, click on whichever one you're interested in, and come down and enjoy the show, or come on your computer and enjoy the show. We just announced this one today. And this is a special event because at UCL is a special unit that has dedicated about 15 years to researching who got money from the compensation money that was paid to the slave owners in the 1830s. So they've actually tracked down which people, which plantation, their home address, their connections to Jamaica or St. Lucia, Barbados, and they put it into one database which you can search and find out where your family comes into it. And we're gonna, on the 20th of May, we'll go through the whole website. They'll show how it works and explain exactly where that money ended up. So that 20 million pounds that was given to the plantation owners and people who owned slaves, I should say, back in the 1830s, they've found out who the descendants are, where the money ended up, and how it was spent. So that has just been announced today. You can also get tickets for that too, and that should be very, very interesting. I did mention River Cruise before. The next one is 27th of June. And basically we're on a boat. We go up and down the River Thames for 3 hours, and we give you a guided history of the Black history on either side, guided commentary say, either side of the River Thames and on the River Thames itself. And on top of that, we have characters in costume who represent real historical people giving talks and speeches about their life and their achievement. So that's taking place 27th of June, also on the website. And now I'm going to hand you back to Dr. Michelle Asantwa and Elder Eric Huntley to take a few questions. So over to you and back to you, Dr. Asantwa.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, I will scroll through. There are lots of comments, which is congratulatory, Baba, Uncle. Everyone's enjoyed listening to you. And thanks to everybody who has shared comments, and also Beverly, thank you so much, from Falma as well, who has shared information that others can refer to. There is one question here which I just wanted to point out. It was when I mentioned Beryl Gilroy and the fact that they didn't name the school after her. Natasha said that that's very disappointing. And does the school have a blue plaque in her memory, which I was also thinking we could try to do. But as far as I'm aware, not, right? Tony, do you know? I don't know. I don't think there is one.
No, there is not one at the moment, but guess what?
Guess what?
Watch this space.
Yes, watch this space. Brilliant. Okay, is there any, let me see if there's another question that I might have missed. There's lots of comments about, the momentous blue plaque unveiling for you, Baba, and some remembering the exhibition being a fantastic experience. Some are thanking you for sharing your story as well.
Oh, Michelle, there was one question earlier on, and they were asking about the anti-apartheid movement. What was Mr. Huntley's involvement in the anti-apartheid movement?
Oh,
I was I was never an integral part of the anti-apartheid movement. We were both followers and concerned persons about the movement, and similarly for the Baldwin movement and the Cuban Missile Crisis, all the various international happenings that occurred during the 60s and 70s, or 50s, 60s and 70s. We were all part of it. I attended vigils at South Africa House, but what I do remember, what sticks in my mind, one of the things that sticks in my mind was that the beginning of the anti-apartheid movement, the people who were demonstrating outside there were not very many, but they were both Africans and Asian, and Africans of Asian origin and Africans who were outside South Africa House. They were the pioneers of that movement to expose what was happening in South Africa. That's the sort of thing I remember.
I can also add, Mr. Huntley, that
I was sorry. It's not a movement that you can become a member of, I don't think. But we were all there at the demonstrations and participating. Yeah, and we picketed, and I forgot, we picketed Sainsbury's in Ealing because there was banning South African goods, and we picketed. We used to go into Sainsbury's and we would order outspan oranges and order wine and as soon, and we will go to the counter. In those days, they weren't cash registers. They took money personally. And when we got there, we looked at the label. He said South Africa, and we just put it aside. And we deliberately did that because we knew there were South African goods. But we just South Africa, I don't want that. South Africa, I don't want that. South Africa.
Strategy.
until the whole basket was finished. Yes, we participated in it. Yes, yeah. Yep.
Good. What else is there? There's another question down here. What's the other question? I did see one just now. I wonder if it would be possible to republish the books. Someone's, who is this? Siobhan? I wonder if it would be possible to republish the books that the library no longer have available if Mr. Huntley have them in his collection.
Majority of them now, it's gone.
Yeah,
it's either gone or it might be. The British Library has copies of books, and every book that is published, we are supposed to send a copy to the
British Library.
Well, there's a special division of the British. What is it called?
Yeah, it is the British Library, really.
The British Library. Each book that is published.
And the Welsh Library, there's 5 of them that you have.
5 of them, yes, that's right.
Copies too. Yeah.
But the important thing is they're not in the libraries. As a matter of fact, the worst part of that is that many of them were sold. I've been into the libraries and I've bought How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. I bought books that resold to the libraries for 5 and 10p. They sold our books. 5 and 10p. I'm sure viewers here might have some experience of that. I've bought quite a few.
Yeah.
5 and 10p. Yeah. Okay.
My chest is.
And that's vandalism. That is vandalism. That's another matter.
We didn't mention the fact that you still do publish, and you still.
I still publish on a very modest.
Yeah, but you're still in action.
Yes.
And you still sell books.
Write and publish. I still write and publish, and sell books.
You very much still sell books. So that's quite interesting for people to know that. I mean, obviously, some of the things that I didn't ask you were like some of the pitfalls and some of the lessons that you have learned, from the whole experience of publishing books and so on, which is another session.
The whole story in itself.
Yeah, I know. But there's obviously a lot. Like I'm grateful to you for having gone through some of those experiences, so that I can learn from. Does anyone have any other questions? Please put it in the chat because I can't see any at the moment.
Beck says, how did you feel when the bookshop moved out of your home and into a shop? How do you feel about that, Mr. Huntley?
How did we?
How do you feel about having to move the bookshop from your home to a shop, to a premises?
Well, we had to move in that. One interesting thing is that that we need to realize is that to start a business, you don't have to wait until you have enough resources to have a shop. You can start it in your home somehow, and that's what we did. And so that it meant starting it in the home. It meant all the overheads were covered that you would normally have in a home. It was covered by your personal finance. But of course, that came to a stop when our neighbors complained that we were running a business in a residential home. We had to look for somewhere. But what it did too is that we weren't prepared for it. Having maintained the expenses within our domestic budget, we were thrown into a situation where we had to find rent, commercial rents, light bill. We had to pay staff or something like that. So that it really threw us out of, but at the same time, it threw up a challenge that you had to move, and therefore you had to rise to the challenge of operating commercial premises. But I remember in those days, a whole week you wouldn't sell anything at all. So that unfortunately, I worked as an insurance underwriter, and I was able to, but I had to spend time doing the publishing and book selling as well as my insurance underwriting, which meant that I was not as successful in having a living wage as if I had concentrated on insurance on its own. But we managed somehow.
I'm still going. There is a question here.
But we paid the price. There's a price to be paid. It's not, anyway, yeah.
Yeah, there is a price, and it is long. But of course now,
if you don't do
working from home, aren't they? Businesses are at home.
There's a price, and if you do something, there's a price.
But we keep doing, right?
Well,
because doing nothing is not an option.
That's right. You can't wait until you can dot all the I's and cross all the T's, else you'll never do anything. Doing nothing is not an option. And for yourself as well.
Mr. Huntley,
what you're doing? Yeah, sorry.
When's the last time you saw or spoke to Audrey Juji?
Oh, I'd love to. And Ziggy Alexander.
All right.
Is Audrey on the line?
Audrey is in the room. So if
they were my love and my regards. And Ziggy Alexander, where are you?
Yeah, so Audrey, if you're there, if you say hello, we should be able to hear you, Audrey.
Lovely. Okay.
Miss Judy Rari.
Yeah.
So Miss Judy, if you're there, you can just speak and we can hear you if you wish to speak, that is. And if you switch your camera, we can see you as well, and Mr. Huntley can see you. Okay.
Is she shy, or
you might be shy, or maybe it's the computer that's not working properly.
I see. Okay. Really lovely to see you, to hear you, Audrey.
Right. We know she's here.
Actually, sir, Mr. Huntley, I got a question for you. So you're 92-year-old now. What do you do with your spare time? How do you spend your spare time when you're just at home chilling out? What do you do?
Spare time? What's that? What's spare time?
Oh,
what's that?
I presume
is that a new kind of whatever.
I presume you had spare time. Obviously, I was mistaken.
Well, I do describe myself as tired and retired.
I like that. You got a lyric.
Oh, hang on.
Tired and retired.
Tired and retired.
No, hang on. I just got to try something again because Audrey does want to say something, but she says it's not working. So let's just try one more time. Miss Dewji, if you can hear me, just say hello. See what happens. Okay.
I can see a message from her though. Can you see that, Tony?
I can see it. Oh, she's
so Uncle, she's saying that she did try to ring you at the old Calder Shore Road number after last week's event.
It still is the same number.
So yes, so she's passing on her very best wishes.
Thank you.
Has enjoyed listening to you these last 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Also remembers the South African good protests.
Yeah. We had anyway.
Go on.
No, go on.
You're just reminiscing, right?
Well, lovely, Audrey. Lovely to hear from you, even though I can't see you. Keep up the good work.
Well, she's got your number, so she'll know that I'll give you a call shortly. All right, Michelle, over to you. We'll wind up now.
Okay, well, I think it has certainly been a really fantastic session to be able to bring this to you listeners, and myself certainly once again being able to sit at your feet, Baba, and to have this exchange. So I want to thank again Tony Warner, Black History Walks, U.C.L, Dr. Paul Gilroy, and the Sarah Remond Centre, and so on, for bringing this. And Uncle, I'm really impressed that you're still looking very much alert and full of beans, even though I know you're tired now. And thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's good to know that the torch is being held aloft and it hasn't been dropped. Keep the struggle going.
So many questions to ask you.
Good night to one and all. Have a good weekend.
Good night. Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. Have a brilliant weekend. Thank you. Thanks, Tony.
Lovely. Thank you.